The galaxy was old, older than any species could remember. And everywhere, in every corner of known space, the ruins waited. Lieutenant Hana stood at the observation window of the research vessel Eternal Dawn, watching the stars drift past like scattered diamonds. She was young for her position, only 28 years old, but she had spent her entire adult life studying the things that terrified everyone else. The ancient ruins, the impossible machines, the structures that no living species had built. The Galactic Concord called them many names. The builders, the first ones, the ancients. 12 different species had joined together 3,000 years ago, united by one shared fear. Somewhere in the distant past, someone had ruled this galaxy. Someone had built weapons that could destroy stars. Someone had created ring worlds large enough to hold entire civilizations. And then, without warning, they had vanished. No one knew who they were. No one knew where they went. The only rule that every species agreed upon was simple. Never touch ancient technology. Never activate their machines. Those who tried always disappeared. Hana did not believe in fear. She believed in answers. The door behind her slid open, and Captain Do-Yun walked onto the bridge. He was an older man, perhaps 50, with gray at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He moved like someone carrying a heavy weight that no one else could see. "You should be sleeping," he said. "I could say the same to you, Captain." Do-Hyun stood beside her at the window. He did not look at the stars. He looked at her, studying her face with something like concern. "The Council has ordered all ships to retreat from this sector," he said. "We received the message an hour ago." "I know. I read it. And yet you are still here, still watching." Hana turned to face him. 20 years ago, you lost your entire crew at an ancient site. Everyone tells me that story. They say it changed you. They say you became careful, cautious, afraid." She paused. "But you did not change course when the warning came. We are still heading toward the signal." Do-Han was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I have spent 20 years running from that place. 20 years telling myself that some doors should stay closed. And then, 3 days ago, we detected something that has never happened before. The activation. Yes, an ancient facility waking up on its own. No one touched it. No one activated it. It simply began to broadcast after millions of years of silence." He finally looked at the stars. "I have to know why." Hana smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in weeks. "That is exactly why I joined your crew, Captain." The Eternal Dawn was a small ship, built for research rather than combat. Its crew numbered only 47, and most of them were scientists, engineers, and specialists. They were not soldiers. They were seekers of knowledge, drawn together by curiosity and courage. Dr. Jisoo was the ship's physician, a practical woman who trusted data more than intuition. She had studied xenobiology for 30 years and had seen things that would break most minds. Nothing surprised her anymore. Engineer Tai Wu was the youngest member of the senior crew, barely 23, with nervous hands and a brilliant mind. He could fix anything, build anything, understand any machine. But ancient technology made him afraid in ways he could not explain. Specialist Yuna handled communications and translation. She was quiet, observant, and patient. She had learned 17 alien languages and could read patterns that others missed. In another life, she might have been a poet. Together, they gathered on the bridge as the Eternal Dawn approached its destination. The ancient facility was built into an asteroid, a rock the size of a small moon drifting at the edge of known space. Even from a distance, it was terrifying. The surface was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Towers rose from the rock like frozen lightning. Lights pulsed in sequences that felt almost like breathing. The energy readings are impossible, Taiwu said, his voice shaking. This facility is producing more power than our entire civilization uses in a year. And it has been dormant for 5 million years. 5 million years, Jisoo repeated. No technology lasts that long. Nothing survives entropy on that scale. Ancient technology does, Hana said. That is what makes it ancient. Captain Do-hyun sat in his command chair, his hands gripping the armrests. His face was calm, but his knuckles were white. Take us closer, slowly. The ship moved forward, drawn toward the facility like a moth toward flame. As they approached, the communication system crackled to life. Yuna's eyes went wide. Captain, we are receiving a signal. It is not in any known language. Can you translate it? No. The structure is unlike anything in our databases. But she paused, her brow furrowed. There is a pattern, a repeating sequence. It almost feels like a greeting or a warning, Jisoo said. Or an invitation, Hana whispered. The signal continued to pulse through their speakers. It was not words, not exactly. It was something deeper. A rhythm that felt familiar, like a heartbeat heard through water. Like a song half remembered from childhood. Hana closed her eyes and listened. Her mother had died when she was young, but she still remembered the lullabies, the soft melodies that made the darkness feel safe. This signal reminded her of those songs. It felt like coming home. Lieutenant? Captain Do-hyun's voice broke through her thoughts. What do you hear? Hana opened her eyes. It is waiting for someone. The signal is not random. It is targeted, specific. She looked at her captain with wonder and fear in her eyes. It is waiting for us. The bridge fell silent. Outside, the ancient facility pulsed with light, and the impossible signal continued its endless call. Do-hyun stood from his chair and walked to the main viewport. He stared at the structure that had haunted his nightmares for 20 years. He thought of his lost crew, of the screams he still heard in his sleep, of all the reasons he should turn around and run. Then he thought of his daughter, born after that tragedy, growing up in a galaxy full of mysteries and shadows. He thought of all the children who looked at the stars and wondered what secrets they held. Prepare an away team, he said. We are going inside. Hana felt her heart racing. This was the moment she had trained for her entire life. The moment when fear met curiosity and curiosity won. The ancient door was opening. And whatever waited on the other side would change everything. The airlock hissed open, and Lieutenant Hana took her first step into the ancient facility. The air was cold and dry, somehow fresh despite millions of years of isolation. Her helmet sensors showed a perfect atmosphere, breathable, safe, as if the facility had been waiting and preparing for visitors. Captain Do-hyun followed close behind, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. He had not drawn it yet, but his fingers twitched with the memory of old trauma. Behind him came Dr. Jisoo, Engineer Taiwu, and Specialist Yuna, 5 explorers walking into the unknown. The corridor stretched before them, impossibly long. The walls were made of a dark material that absorbed their flashlight beams. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with faint blue light. They pulsed slowly, like a sleeping creature's breath. The architecture is wrong, Taiwu whispered. The angles do not match any known geometric principles. My instruments say this corridor is 100 meters long, but my eyes say it goes on forever. Trust your instruments, Jisoo said. Your eyes can be fooled, can they? Hana asked. She reached out and touched the wall. It was warm beneath her fingers, almost alive. Perhaps the ancients understood things we do not. Perhaps they built in ways that our minds cannot process. They walked for what felt like hours, but was only minutes. The corridor twisted and turned in impossible directions. Sometimes gravity shifted beneath their feet. Sometimes the walls seemed to breathe and move. But they kept walking, following the pulsing lights deeper into the structure. Finally, they reached a chamber. It was vast. So vast that their flashlights could not reach the ceiling. Pillars rose from the floor like frozen trees, covered in the same glowing symbols. And at the center of the room stood something that made all of them stop and stare. A display. Hundreds of glass containers arranged in a perfect circle, each one holding a small sample of organic material. DNA. Genetic code preserved across unimaginable spans of time. Jisoo moved forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. She examined the containers one by one, her scanner humming as it analyzed their contents. "This is impossible," she breathed. "These samples. I recognize them. This one is from the Valorian species. This one is Kethrani. This one is Moravian." She looked up, her face pale. Every species in the Galactic Concord is represented here. Every single one? How? Do-Yoon demanded. The Concord was formed 3,000 years ago. These samples are millions of years old. "I do not know," Jisoo admitted. "But there is more. Look at the center. At the very heart of the display, in the position of greatest honor, stood a 13th container. It was larger than the others, made of a different material that seemed to glow from within. The sample inside was degraded, damaged by time, but still present. "What species is that?" Yuna asked. Jisoo scanned it. Her scanner beeped, processed, and then displayed an error message she had never seen before. "Unknown. The genetic structure does not match anything in our database." But she frowned at her readings. There are similarities, fragments that seem familiar, as if this species is related to the others somehow. Before anyone could respond, the chamber changed. The light shifted from blue to gold. A deep hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. And then, from the walls themselves, figures emerged. They were not solid. They were projections, made of light and shadow, but they moved with purpose and intelligence. Tall, slender beings with faces that seemed almost familiar, almost understandable. One of them spoke. His voice was like music, like mathematics, like something too complex for ordinary ears to fully hear. "You have come far. You have shown courage. But courage alone is not enough." The projection surrounded the team. They did not attack, did not threaten. They simply watched, evaluated, and judged. "What do you want from us?" Captain Do-Hyun demanded. "We want to know if you are ready," the projection answered. "Others have come before you. They sought power. They sought control. They sought to take what was not theirs. They failed. Failed how?" Hannah asked. The projection turned to look at her. For a moment, its face seemed to shift, becoming clearer, more defined, almost human. They failed the tests. They could not see beyond their fear, their greed, their isolation. They could not work together. They could not trust. The projection gestured to the display of genetic samples. "These are the children. We planted the seeds of life across 1,000 worlds. We guided evolution, nurtured growth, and hoped that someday our children would be ready." "Ready for what?" Jisoo asked. "Ready to remember." The chamber changed again. The floor beneath them became transparent, revealing a vast space below. And in that space, they saw something that stole their breath. A door. A door so large it could have been the gate to a planet. It was covered in warning symbols, and locks and seals and barriers designed to keep something out. Or perhaps to keep something in. "The first test begins now," the projection said. "Work together. Trust each other. Show us that the children have grown." The lights went out. In the darkness, something moved. Something large and fast and hungry. Taiwu screamed. Jisoo grabbed for her medical kit. Yuna tried to call for help on her communicator, but received only static. Everyone, stay calm, Captain Do-Yun ordered. Back to back. Form a circle. Do not let anything separate us. They moved in the darkness, finding each other by touch and voice. Hannah felt Yuna's hand grip her arm. She felt Taiwu trembling beside her. She felt Do-Hyun's steady presence at her back. The test is not about fighting, Hannah realized. It is about connection. They want to see if we can function as one. How do you know? Jisoo asked. Because that is what family does. The darkness pressed in around them. The creature circled, testing, probing, searching for weakness. But the five of them held together, breathing as one, moving as one, refusing to break apart. Hours passed. Or perhaps minutes. Time had no meaning in this place. And then, suddenly, the lights returned. The creature was gone. The projections were back, watching them with something that might have been approval. You have passed the first test, the lead projection said. You chose trust over fear. Unity over isolation. Perhaps you are ready after all. The sealed door at the center of the chamber began to open. Ancient locks released for the first time in 5 million years. Dust and light poured out like water. Hannah stepped forward. She did not know what waited on the other side. She did not know what secrets had been hidden for so long. But she knew one thing. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. The door opened fully, and a voice spoke. Not from the projections, but from somewhere deeper. Somewhere older. A voice that carried the weight of eternal time. Welcome home, child of Earth. Hannah froze. Earth. She had never heard that word before. But somewhere in her heart, somewhere in her blood, something recognized it. Something remembered. The inner sanctum was beautiful beyond description. Walls of crystal rose around them, filled with swirling light that moved like living things. The air smelled like flowers and rain and something else. Something that Hannah could not name but instantly loved. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal. And above the pedestal floated a sphere of pure light, spinning slowly, waiting. What is this place? Captain Do-Hyun whispered. His voice echoed in the vast space, and the echoes sounded like music. The sphere responded. It expanded, unfolded, and transformed into a holographic display that filled the entire chamber. Images appeared. Moving pictures of places and people and events from impossibly long ago. This is a memorial, a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It was warm and sad and filled with love. This is the story of those who came before. The story of humanity. The images showed a small blue planet spinning in the darkness of space. Oceans and continents and clouds of white. A world of breathtaking beauty. Earth, the voice continued. The birthplace. The beginning. 5 million years ago, a species rose on that world. They called themselves humans. They were small, fragile, short-lived. But they dreamed larger than any species before or since. The images shifted. Humans building cities. Humans creating art and music and literature. Humans reaching for the stars with primitive rockets that barely escaped their own atmosphere. And then, slowly, humans spreading across the galaxy. First to their nearest neighbors. Then farther, and farther, and farther still. Over millions of years, humanity grew. They learned. They evolved. They became something more than they had been. The images showed humans transforming, their technology advancing beyond comprehension, their minds expanding to grasp concepts that would destroy lesser beings. They built the great works, the ring worlds, the star engines, the gates between galaxies. They became the ancients that you now fear. Dr. Jisoo sank to her knees. Her scientific mind could not process what she was seeing. Taiwu wept openly, tears streaming down his young face. Yuna stood frozen, her translator's mind working frantically to understand. Captain Do-yoon stared at the images with the expression of a man, watching his entire understanding of reality crumble to dust. Only Hana remained standing. Only Hana could still speak. What happened to them? She asked. Where did they go? The images darkened. The voice grew heavy with grief. At the height of their power, humanity discovered that they were not alone. Something else existed in the spaces between galaxies. Something old. Something hungry. Something that consumed light and life and hope. They called it the Silence. The hologram showed darkness. Pure, absolute darkness that moved like a living thing, swallowing stars and worlds and entire civilizations. The Silence had destroyed countless universes before. It moved slowly, patiently, waiting for intelligent life to arise before feeding. And when it found the galaxy that humanity had claimed, it began to move. Hana felt cold. A deep primal cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Humanity fought. For 1,000 years, they battled the Silence with every weapon they possessed. They lost worlds. They lost trillions of lives. But they held the line. The images showed warfare on a scale that defied imagination. Fleets of millions of ships. Weapons that reshaped reality itself. Sacrifices beyond counting. In the end, they succeeded. They pushed the Silence back. They sealed the barriers between galaxies and bought the universe time. Then why are they gone? Jisoo demanded, finding her voice at last. If they won, why did they disappear? The voice was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. Because they were tired. Because the war had changed them. Because they had become so powerful, so advanced, that they could no longer connect with the younger species they had created. They had won the battle, but they had lost something precious. They had lost the ability to feel small, to feel wonder, to feel hope. The images changed again. They showed humans, ancient and weary, looking down at the worlds they had seeded with life. The primitive species that were just beginning to reach for the stars. They loved us, Hana breathed. She understood now. She could feel it in her bones. They loved us, and they knew that their presence would prevent us from growing. Yes, the voice was thick with emotion. Humanity made a choice. The hardest choice any parent can make. They chose to let go. They erased themselves from history. They destroyed their cities, dismantled their worlds, and scattered into the void. Not to survive, not to hide, but to give their children the chance to grow without shadows. Taiwu looked up, his face wet with tears. They died for us. They died for hope, the voice corrected. They knew that the Silence would return someday. They knew that their children would face the same darkness. But they believed in you. They believed that when the time came, you would be ready. That you would be stronger together than humanity ever was alone. Captain Do-yoon finally moved. He walked slowly toward the central pedestal, his boots echoing in the sacred space. He looked at the sphere of light, at the memorial to a species that had given everything for strangers they would never meet. 20 years ago, he said, his voice breaking, I lost my crew in an ancient facility. I thought they died because we disturbed something evil. I thought the ancients were monsters. Tears rolled down his weathered cheeks. But they were not monsters. They were parents. And my crew, he could barely speak. My crew must have been close to something important. Something worth protecting. Yes, the voice said gently. Your friends died protecting this truth. They were brave, and they are remembered. Yuna had been silent throughout the revelation. Now she stepped forward, her translator's instincts guiding her to a wall covered in smaller displays. These are personal messages, she realized. Individual humans. They left notes for their children. She touched one at random. A face appeared, a woman with kind eyes and silver hair. "I do not know who will hear this," the woman said. "I do not know what species you will be or what world you will call home. But I want you to know that I thought of you, that I loved you before you were born, before your species existed, before your world had cooled. You are my child, my hope, my reason for everything." Yuna touched another. A man this time, laughing despite the tears on his face. "We are about to do something very scary," he said. "We are about to disappear. But do not be sad for us. We lived full lives. We saw wonders you cannot imagine. And now we get to give you the greatest gift any parent can give. A future. Make it a good one, little ones. Make us proud." There were billions of messages, billions of goodbyes, billions of human beings who had walked into extinction with love in their hearts and hope in their souls. Hannah fell to her knees and wept. She wept for a parent she had never known, for the sacrifice she had never understood, for the love that had crossed 5 million years of darkness to reach her. She wept because she finally understood what she was, not an orphan, not alone, not lost, a daughter, a child of Earth, an heir to hope. And somewhere in the depths of the memorial, the voice spoke one final warning. The silence is patient. The barriers are weakening. The darkness is coming again. The sphere pulsed with urgent light. Remember what you are. Remember that you were never alone. And when the time comes, stand together. Because love is the only weapon that has ever truly mattered. The team had spent 3 days inside the ancient facility. 3 days of revelation, wonder, and tears. 3 days that had changed everything they believed about themselves and their universe. But now, that time was ending. "Captain," Yuna's voice was tight with fear. "I am detecting multiple signatures entering the system. Warships, at least 40 of them." Dahyun rushed to her station, his face going pale as he saw the readings. "The Concorde fleet. They found us. They are broadcasting a message," Yuna said. "They are ordering us to evacuate immediately. The facility has been classified as a threat to galactic security." She paused, listening to her earpiece. "They intend to destroy it." "No." Hannah stepped forward, her hands clenched into fists. "They cannot. They do not understand what this place is, what it means. To them, it is an ancient ruin," Jisoo said. "And ancient ruins are dangerous. The Concorde has feared the builders for 3,000 years. That fear will not disappear because of what we discovered." Taiwu was working frantically at a console deep within the facility. "There is more," he called out. "I found something. Another chamber, hidden behind the memorial hall. It contains a device." They followed him through winding corridors until they reached a small room. In the center stood a machine, unlike anything they had seen before. It was delicate, almost organic, shaped like a flowering plant made of light and crystal. "What does it do?" Do-hyun asked. "According to the records, it is called a resonance engine." Taiwu studied the readouts, his brilliant mind working to understand technology millions of years advanced. "It does not change people physically. It awakens something already inside them." "Inside them?" "The humans did not just guide evolution," Taiwu explained. "They wove themselves into the genetic code of every sentient species. Every being in the Concorde carries fragments of human DNA. We are all, in some way, their descendants." Dr. Jisoo nodded slowly. "That explains the similarities I found in the genetic samples." The 13th specimen was not a separate species. It was the template, the source. The resonance engine activates that dormant code. Taiwu continued. Not to transform anyone. Not to control them. Just to remind them. To unlock ancestral memories. Everyone who hears the signal will feel what the humans felt. They will understand, deep in their bones, that they are family. Hana touched the device gently. It hummed beneath her fingers, warm and alive. This is what humanity left behind. Not weapons. Not power. Just truth. The ship shook. Warning lights flashed throughout the facility. The fleet has opened fire, Yuna reported. They are targeting the outer structures. We have maybe an hour before they reach the core. Then we have to leave, Jisoo said. Now, before we are trapped, and abandon this? Hana demanded. Abandon the truth? Abandon humanity's final gift? We can take the information with us, Jisoo argued. We can share it later when the time is right. When will that be? Hana's voice rose with passion. The Concord has feared the ancients for 3,000 years. If we leave now, that fear will remain. They will destroy this place, and another generation will grow up believing the builders were monsters. Another generation will never know that they are loved. Captain Do-Hyen stood silent, torn between duty and truth. He had spent 20 years running from ancient sites. He had built his entire identity around caution and fear. But now he knew the truth. Now he understood. If we activate the device, he said slowly, what happens? Everyone in range will receive the signal, Taiwu answered. And once it starts, it will spread. Ship to ship. World to world. Until every sentient being in the galaxy feels the memory. And they will simply remember? They will feel love, sacrifice, hope. The emotions humanity felt when they chose to save their children. Taiwu looked at his captain with something approaching reverence. They will know, in their hearts, that they are not alone. That they never were. Another explosion rocked the facility. Dust fell from the ceiling. Time was running out. The fleet commander is hailing us, Yuna said. Admiral Woojin. He wants to speak directly. Do-Hyen nodded. Put him through. A hologram appeared. Admiral Woojin was a decorated warrior, a hero of 3 wars, a man who had dedicated his life to protecting the Concord from threats both known and unknown. His face was hard, his eyes cold. Captain Do-Hyen, you were ordered to retreat. Instead, you have entered a forbidden site and compromised galactic security. I am giving you one chance. Evacuate your team and surrender your ship. We will destroy this facility and discuss your court-martial later. Admiral, Do-Hyen said carefully, you do not understand what this place is. The ancients were not enemies. They were not threats. They were builders of weapons capable of destroying solar systems, Woojin interrupted. They were creators of technology that has killed thousands of explorers. I do not care what myths you have uncovered. My duty is to protect the Concord. Your duty is to protect your family. Hana stepped into view. And that is exactly what the ancients were. Our family. Our ancestors. They did not disappear because they were destroyed. They sacrificed themselves so that we could live. So that we could grow. Woojin's eyes narrowed. You are a junior officer. You do not speak for this mission. No, Hana agreed. But I speak for humanity. And so do you, Admiral, whether you know it or not. We all carry their blood. We all carry their hope. Enough. Woojin cut the connection. The hologram vanished. He is not going to stop, Jisoo said. He cannot. His entire worldview depends on the ancients being enemies. If he accepts the truth, everything he has done becomes meaningless. Then we show him, Hana said. She turned to Taiwu. Can you activate the device from here? Yes, but... Taiwu hesitated. The power requirements are enormous. Someone will need to stay at the control station to stabilize the core. If the facility is collapsing around us, I will do it. Everyone turned to look at Hannah. No, Doyin said immediately. I will not lose another crew member. Not like this. Captain, I have spent my entire life searching for something. A purpose. A meaning. A place where I belong. Hannah smiled, and there was peace in her eyes. I found it. Here. In the truth of what humanity was and what they wanted us to become. If I can give that gift to the entire galaxy, then my life will have meant something. Your life already means something, Una said, tears in her eyes. You are our friend, our sister. Then let me be what family is supposed to be. Hannah took each of their hands in turn. Let me protect you. The facility shook again. The explosions were getting closer. Captain Doyen looked at the young woman who had become like a daughter to him. He wanted to order her to leave. He wanted to drag her back to the ship by force. But he saw the certainty in her eyes, the same certainty that his lost crew had shown 20 years ago. Some things were worth dying for. Begin the activation, he said, his voice breaking. And may God forgive me for allowing this. Hannah moved to the control station. Her hands danced across ancient interfaces that responded to her touch as if they had been waiting 5 million years for this moment. Go, she said. Get to the ship. When the signal activates, you need to be ready to broadcast our findings. The galaxy needs to hear the truth from living voices, not just ancient machines. They did not want to leave. But they went. One by one, they walked out of the chamber, each stopping to embrace Hannah, each whispering words of love and gratitude and farewell. Captain Do-hyung was the last. You remind me of my daughter, he said. She has your courage, your stubbornness, your light. Tell her about me, Hannah said. Tell her about all of us. About what humanity was and what we can become. I will. Do-hyun kissed her forehead, a father's blessing. I swear it. Then he was gone, and Hannah was alone with the device that would change everything. The facility crumbled around her. Fire and debris fell from above. But her hands were steady, and her heart was calm. She thought of her mother, dead so many years ago. She thought of the billions of humans who had walked into extinction with hope in their souls. She thought of family, and she pressed the final button. Light exploded outward, a wave of pure emotion carrying 5 million years of love across the stars. And Hannah smiled. The signal hit Admiral Woojin's flagship first. He was standing on the bridge, watching his weapons tear into the ancient facility, when the wave of light washed over his ship. It passed through shields and armor as if they did not exist. It touched every person aboard. And Admiral Woojin fell to his knees. He remembered. Not facts or images, but feelings. The warmth of being held as a child. The fierce protection of a parent facing danger. The heartbreak of saying goodbye to someone you love, knowing you will never see them again. The hope that your sacrifice will mean something. Tears streamed down his weathered face. He tried to speak, but only a sob escaped his lips. Around him, his crew experienced the same thing. Hardened warriors wept openly. Officers who had never shown emotion in their lives embraced each other like lost siblings. The weapons' fire stopped. The attack ended. No one could continue fighting after feeling what they felt. The signal spread outward. Ship to ship. Station to station. World to world. On 12 different planets. Millions of beings suddenly understood. They felt the love of parents they had never known. They felt the sacrifice of ancestors who had given everything for strangers. They felt the truth that had been hidden for 5 million years. The ancients were not monsters. They were not gods. They were family. They were humanity. And they had loved their children enough to die for them. Meanwhile, inside the collapsing facility, Hana fought to stay conscious. The control station was failing. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Fire licked at the walls. But the signal was still broadcasting, still spreading, and she would not let it stop until the job was done. Her vision blurred. Her hands trembled. She could feel the structure coming apart around her. And then, through the smoke and chaos, a figure appeared. Captain Doyen. I told you to leave, Hana gasped. And I told you I would not lose another crew member. He grabbed her arm and pulled her from the station. The signal is stable. The automatic systems will keep it running. You do not need to die here. But no arguments, Lieutenant. That is an order. He half carried, half dragged her through collapsing corridors. Behind them, the facility groaned and screamed as ancient structures surrendered to modern weapons. Ahead, a small emergency exit flickered with failing lights. Taiwu was waiting there with a portable shuttle, no larger than a cargo container, but capable of atmospheric flight. Get in, he shouted. We have 30 seconds before this whole section goes. They tumbled into the shuttle. Taiwu launched immediately, pushing the tiny craft through gaps in falling debris, dodging explosions, riding the shock waves of destruction. They burst into open space just as the facility's core collapsed. A massive explosion bloomed behind them, silent in the vacuum. Beautiful and terrible. The ancient memorial was gone, but its message lived on. 3 months later, everything had changed. Lieutenant Hana stood before the Galactic Concord Council, in a chamber that had hosted debates and decisions for 3,000 years. She was no longer a junior officer. The events at the facility had made her something more. A symbol. A bridge between past and future. The 12 species of the Concord were all represented. Politicians, scientists, religious leaders, and ordinary citizens filled the galleries. They had all felt the signal. They all knew the truth. But knowing and accepting were different things, and the galaxy was still struggling to understand what it had learned. You have requested to address the council, the chief speaker said. He was an elderly Valorian, his silver skin marked with the wrinkles of a long life. We will hear your words. Hannah stepped forward. She was nervous, but she did not let it show. She thought of humanity. She thought of sacrifice. She thought of hope. For 5 million years, she began, we looked at the ruins of our ancestors and saw gods or monsters. We never imagined the truth. We never imagined that they were parents who loved us enough to let us grow on our own. She paused, letting the words sink in. They did not leave us defenseless. They left us each other. They wove their DNA into every sentient species in this galaxy. They made us family, not through words or treaties, but through blood, through love. Admiral Wujin sat in the front row of the gallery. His face was calm now, peaceful in a way it had never been before. The signal had changed him. It had broken something hard inside him and replaced it with something soft, something human. The silence is coming, Hana continued. The records in the facility were clear about this. The barriers that humanity built are weakening. The darkness that consumed countless universes before is approaching ours. We do not know when it will arrive. We do not know exactly what it is, but we know it is coming. Fear rippled through the chamber. The silence was a threat beyond comprehension, beyond anything the Concord had ever faced. Humanity faced it alone, Hana said. A single species against the end of everything. And they won. They pushed it back. They sealed the gates. They saved the galaxy. She raised her voice. They were one species. We are 12. They were alone. We are together. If they could win, so can we. She thought of Captain Doyen, recovering in a medical facility, his body broken but his spirit renewed. She thought of Dr. Jisoo, leading a new research team to study the technology unlocked by the signal. She thought of Taiwu, applying human knowledge to Concord engineering, advancing their science by 1,000 years. She thought of Yuna, translating the billions of personal messages left by humanity, sharing their words with a galaxy hungry to hear them. "I am not asking you to worship the ancients," Hana said. "They would not have wanted that. They did not sacrifice themselves to be remembered as gods. They sacrificed themselves so that we could stand on our own feet, face our own challenges, and become something greater than they were." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had once been strangers. Species that now knew they were siblings. We are not their successors. We are not their shadows. We are their children, all of us. And when the darkness comes, we will show it what humanity taught us. Her voice rang out, clear and strong, that the small can protect the great. That love outlasts extinction. That the light we carry was never just our own. We were never alone. We were never abandoned. We were loved. Silence filled the chamber. Not the hungry silence that threatened from beyond the stars, but a thoughtful silence. A transformative silence. And then, one by one, the delegates began to rise. First the Valorians, then the Kethrani, then the Marovians. Species after species, standing in unity, honoring the truth that had been hidden for so long. Admiral Wujin was the last to stand. When he did, he raised his hand in the ancient military salute of his people. A gesture of respect, of loyalty, of family. Hannah felt tears on her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. Outside the chamber, across 12 worlds, the galaxy was changing. Temples to the fearsome ancients were being renamed. They were now called the Founders, the Beloved, the Lost Parents. Species that had been enemies for centuries were finding common ground. Children of different worlds were learning that they shared the same ancestors. And in laboratories and research stations across known space, scientists worked frantically to prepare for the coming darkness. The signal had unlocked more than just memories. It had unlocked knowledge, human technology, hidden in genetic code, waiting to be discovered. The Concord's defenses were growing stronger every day. Night fell on the capital world. Hana stood on a balcony, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the boundaries of the galaxy, the silence waited, patient, hungry, eternal. But Hana was not afraid. She thought of her mother, long dead. She thought of the humans who had walked into extinction with hope in their hearts. She thought of all the parents across all of time who had sacrificed everything for children they would never meet. "We will be ready," she whispered to the stars. "When you come for us, we will be ready, and we will show you what your prey has become." She smiled, and in that smile was all the fierce love of 5 million years. We were never alone. We were never forgotten. We were loved. Above her, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter. And somewhere, across the vast distances of space and time, Hana could almost hear a voice, warm, proud, eternal, a human voice, speaking the words that had guided the universe since the very beginning. "We will see you among the stars, little ones. We will see you among the stars." The darkness was coming, but the light was ready, and it would never go out.